You can dissociate from reality in any way, shape, and form now. And that's what this culture is encouraging people to do, is like, oh no, fix the problem. If something's wrong, fix it, fix it, fix it. It's like this fear-driven culture of not being able to handle pain. But God works in the wilderness. God works in our pain. His power is made perfect in our weakness. And when we take a step back and ask the Lord to help us and to guide us and to literally surrender our plans to Him, that's where true healing comes from.
This is StRest. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest.
I am thrilled to invite in Kim Gargano. She is an author, podcast host, and a Christian content creator. She is dedicated to helping women find their purpose and identity in Christ. She is the host of Holy and Hormonal. It's a podcast. She creates a safe, honest space where faith meets science. You know, she's speaking my language. She's offering practical and biblical wisdom to women who feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, or even crazy as they navigate the ups and downs of their hormones. Through her work, Kim encourages women to see their bodies as beautifully designed by God and reminds them that they are never alone in their journey towards wholeness and holiness. Let's welcome her in.
Okay, Kim, tell us how you got into hormones and faith. It's definitely something different.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would be here preaching about hormones as a Christian. I never thought I would honestly be a Christian, let alone talking about periods and bleeding and all this stuff.
Ooh, start there first. Where did that come from?
Well, I grew up in a very religious home and a very religious school, and I had a few traumatic experiences that pushed me really far from God. And I just never really liked the idea of a God that was judging me, looking down on me, kind of keeping track of everything I was doing wrong with the way I was taught to believe He was. And so when I got out of college, I kind of hit rock bottom, like during COVID. All my PTSD was coming back, my OCD was coming back, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give God a shot. I'll just try, even though this is really hard for me. I'm just going to show up and see what happens. And slowly God started working on my heart, and I was just being wrecked by His love. And I kind of didn't look back from there. And the hormone piece kind of comes in also because I had a lot of traumatic experiences with getting my period. The women in my family were not supportive really at all. Like, no one talked about periods. No one held my hand and was like, listen, this is going to happen. And like, here's how you use a tampon or a pad. I was literally left to figure it out all on my own. And it was just really hard. So I kind of shied away from that side of me and didn't really embrace my femininity or really look at my period as something that's a gift from the Lord. I always just saw it as something to be hidden, something to be not talked about, something that's dirty and gross. So you put those two things together, and like, it's only the grace and the goodness of God that I'm sitting here fully on fire for Jesus and so passionate about helping other women not feel the way that I did growing up.
Where do you think that comes from? You say that your family wasn't, super, I don't know if supportive is the right word, but where do you think that comes from? Not just in your family, but others, where we kind of hold hormones and periods and throughout our entire life. And then again, in perimenopause and menopause, kind of quietly and in secret.
I think it's been in the culture for so long. Like, you even think about biblical times, women were kind of not like cast out, but they were told to go somewhere else to deal with their issues and their bleeding. It was seen as dirty and unclean. And so we see all throughout history the fact that when women are on their periods, it's seen as a very dirty, shameful thing. So it's not even like a family history of not being open and communicative with women. It's in our culture everywhere. There's misogyny everywhere. There's internalized misogyny that women have against themselves and other women. So it's just like been this pattern that I feel like we're just starting to break now, but is still very evident in culture everywhere.
How do we get through that in ourselves? How do we break that in ourselves? Not what everybody else thinks or says to us, but internally.
I think something that I'm learning in therapy, which is great, is that you kind of have to parent yourself and be the person that you really needed back then. So I'm learning to look at my 13-year-old self and kind of give her the love and support that I wish that I needed, that I hope to one day give my future daughter, Lord willing. It starts with healing and kind of thinking about things differently in your own mind, like healing that perspective that you've had for so long, rewriting the narrative for yourself, and then really believing it for yourself. It takes a long time. Like, I'm still on this journey, but yeah, it's hard, but it's kind of like self-discipline. You have to learn to parent and love yourself first before you can pour into other people.
I was just at a conference and I heard from Dr. David Rubin, and he was talking about depression and how depression isn't chemical, but it is truly linked to trauma. We all go through trauma, big T, little t. You going through what you went, even just as 13-year-old getting her period, not having the support, that was a trauma to you. And what he says is that as long as you go through a trauma and you're able to turn to somebody else and they help you and support you and accept you through it, as opposed to saying, oh, don't worry about it and walking away. Or maybe as long as you're able to speak it out loud, because a lot of people just hold it in, you'll be able to manage through that trauma and it should not turn into depression later on in life. But what you're saying is great. Going back, and it's kind of what he says, going back to those traumas and doing it over.
Yeah.
Doing it different, where you support yourself or you talk about it and you get support.
Yeah, it's really never too late to work on your trauma. Like, I always think of when God has us in certain seasons, he kind of like wants to pull the arrow back before he launches you forward, because we can't move forward if there's things that we're constantly hindered by. Like, for me, it's nightmares, and I'm working through this now of like dealing with these nightmares from my past. And I'm like, this makes no sense. Like, I don't even think about these people. I don't think about these experiences in my daily life, but why are they showing up? And it's God's way of being like, there's still clutter to clear out here. There's still healing I want for you. And we have to go back in order to move forward.
What should every woman know about her hormones?
They do more than just give you a period. They do more than just make you moody. If you deal with PMS symptoms, they have a hand in almost every function of your body: your immune health, your metabolic health, your sleep patterns, your circadian rhythm, your joy, your serotonin, those good neurochemicals that make you feel happy. Obviously, your reproductive health. It has so much more to do with just getting a period. If you feel like you're gaining weight and you have no idea why, it could be your thyroid. It could be some thyroid hormones that are going wrong. If you're not sleeping well, if you're waking up at 2 to 4 a.m. consistently every night, could be high cortisol. Like, there's so many things that our hormones do that we don't even realize. Like, when I thought about hormones, I thought about my period and that's it. I didn't think about cortisol or adrenaline or norepinephrine. I didn't think about things like that. I didn't think about thyroid hormones. I only thought about estrogen, progesterone, maybe if I even knew those terms when I was figuring all this stuff out. But it has so much more to do with just getting your period, and understanding how your hormones work, I feel like, is the key to understanding how to heal.
What brought you here? I mean, you have a love of the Lord, which is why you're on this podcast, and I found you and I was so excited. But it takes, you're young, and you were young when you started talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to yourself get over the stigma and start talking about hormones to others and even just other peers your age?
Yeah. So the turning point for me was, well, to give some context, my mom had really bad PMS symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
She had like really severe cramping and what I would diagnose her as with PMDD, which I inherited, I think. And so struggling with PMDD and not really putting language to what it was from such a young age made me feel genuinely crazy. And like, how and why do I become the worst version of myself when I'm about to get my period? Why do I feel so angry, so irritable, so moody, so back and forth, so unstable?
Can you tell somebody what PMDD is if they don't understand?
Yeah, so PMDD is basically like PMS, but the most severe form of it. And I kind of use that term a little loosely because PMDD is also its own neurological disorder. It's actually in the DSM-5, which is this whole book of neurological and mental disorders. So it has its own category in the sector of PMS, but it's basically your body has a hypersensitivity to your hormones fluctuating, specifically when your estrogen and progesterone start dipping, or when the estrogen starts dipping and the progesterone starts to rise. Your body is just like a little more sensitive to that and doesn't really know how to handle it properly. So that's basically what it is, and how it manifests is extreme moodiness, anger, rage. It could be like crying spells, super emotional, unable to rationalize things. Things feel so much more dramatic when you're about to get your period. You might feel on edge, super jumpy, really anxious, problems sleeping, just to name a few that I could think of off the
Right.
top of my
Some
head that I
fun
deal with.
things. Yeah.
So I've been dealing with this since I got my period when I was probably 12 years old. And I had no idea that this wasn't normal, that this was honestly something that I should get checked out. And so I just kind of carried this with me through my adulthood. And I'm now 26. But when I was about 24, 25, I was sitting in the car and I was just miserable. And it was one of those days where I felt like I was losing my faith because I was about to get my period. I just felt like all my faith was flying out the window. I didn't want to pray. I didn't want to seek the Lord. I was almost actively rejecting God and his love because of this narrative that I just created in my head. And I was just sitting there crying in my car. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to look up periods, hormones, Jesus, and just hope that an older woman could encourage me, or someone could just walk me through this and tell me that I'm not crazy, that everything's fine, this is going to pass. And literally nothing showed up. Not one woman was talking about this. And I just got even more defeated because I was like, man, we're really not talking about this. I guess this is just a me problem. Because if no one else is sharing it, then it has to just be me. But God was like, no, like you need to start talking about this. You're going to be the one to kind of break through this generation and kind of just lead the sheep as a shepherd into healing and into just an open conversation about it. So in my car that day, I just propped up my phone on the steering wheel and I was like, you guys, someone please tell me I'm not losing my mind, because why am I sitting here crying my eyes out about having no faith, but I know that it's because my hormones are raging and I'm guilting myself. And it started going viral. And I started talking about this more consistently. And so many women were like, you have no idea how much I needed to hear this. I felt insane too. And I'm just so glad that there's another woman who loves Jesus so much that is kind of opening the floor to this real issue that women deal with of, how do I cope with this? How do I have steadfast faithfulness and love in God when I feel nothing but faithful? I feel nothing but joyful. How do I ask God for the fruits of the Spirit when I am lacking everything that I need right now? And it just kind of snowballed from there. And that's why I'm here now. The podcast that I created, Holy and Hormonal, was born. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It is amazing. And it's amazing that you, as a 24-year-old, 25-year-old, had the faith to be able to go forward in a very often angry and judgmental world online to talk about something like this. But even as I say that, I know that it really wasn't you. It was the Lord through you. It was the Holy Spirit moving through you, because none of us are strong enough to do anything, honestly. It all has to be the Lord coming through us. And I know so many people are listening and going, okay, yeah, but I'm not 26 dealing with my period. I am 50 dealing with starting to lose my period. It is the same.
Yeah.
Many people say that menopause is like a second puberty. You're going through kind of in reverse, but your hormones are at their worst. You're raging up and down and up and down. So a lot of these same feelings that a 24-year-old, 25-year-old, 26-year-old can have, you can be having at 46, 47, 48 as you're going through it on the other side.
Yeah. And I really applaud the menopause movement now of just women claiming their power back and like using their voice again because it's been silenced for so long. Like that generation, I have so much love and respect for. And it's something that I can lend my family grace in because they didn't have the support that they needed. So how could they know how to support me in that? But it starts today. Like you said, it's the same. Hormones are going to function how they're designed to function. And it's very black and white sometimes with hormones. Like I like to think of the endocrine system and hormones as like a symphony, and each one of your hormones is a musical note. One of those musical notes starts playing a little too fast or in a different key, it's going to throw off the way that the whole symphony sounds, but you can fix that. There's ways to get it back into motion. And what I'm learning now is that like the 20s are the time to really set up your profile for the rest of your life. I have been on birth control for the past 9 years, I got off a few months ago, thank God. I didn't know the implications of how birth control was ruining my health and what it was doing to my body because I didn't have the education for it. But I hope to get pregnant in the next few years, and I hope to have kids, and I hope to maintain a pregnancy and deliver to term. And so I'm doing the work now because I want to set myself up for success for perimenopause, for menopause, for postmenopause. I want to enable my body and equip it to handle that in a graceful way, in the best way possible. And the work starts literally today. It doesn't matter if you're 20 years younger, if you're listening to this, or if you're my age, you can do something right now to help yourself. And I promise you, you will start seeing results faster than you think.
So true. Birth control is a topic I'd love to talk about for just a second because it is something that's very widespread and younger because of the preservatives in our food and the lack of good soil and the standard American diet and how that is having an effect on girls going into puberty earlier and having PCOS and having PMDD. And so birth control is kind of the fix-all in mainstream medicine on how to just kind of regulate a period. But you're very right in that it definitely needs to have a larger conversation before you put your daughter, your granddaughter on birth control. You go on birth control. I talk to women who are 50 and still on birth control because it's all they've ever been on. Yeah. So talk to me about how it worked with you, what you learned, and why you decided this is probably wrecking my health.
Yeah. So when I was first on it, I was on the IUD, and I don't want to demonize birth control because it can be useful in certain cases like mine. I had a bleeding disorder and I was bleeding out a lot during my period to the point where it was becoming dangerous for me. So my healthcare professionals and my team was like, I think you should go on the IUD. I couldn't go on the pill because of risk of blood clots. So that was what was my prescription, really. And it wasn't to prevent pregnancy. It was simply to keep me alive so I don't bleed out. But I just never got off of it. And I didn't know how birth control really worked. And I didn't know that certain types of birth control can deplete your body of absorbing certain nutrients. And I didn't know that it could have all these other effects. And so being on it now for 9 years, about a year and a half ago is when I really was like, you know what? I don't need to be on this anymore. I'm not sleeping with my boyfriend. I'm waiting for marriage. What am I really doing on this? Like, I feel kind of dissociated from my femininity and my womanhood by being on birth control. Like, I want to know what it feels like to ovulate. I don't know what that's like because I haven't been. And so in my case, birth control was used as a temporary fix to a problem or to prevent a problem from getting worse. But cases like mine are very, very slim. What gynecologists and OBs are doing is they're being presented symptoms and they're just prescribing birth control like candy. I would never put someone with PCOS on birth control because one of the main symptoms of PCOS is infrequent periods. So that means that you're infrequently ovulating. And so when you put someone on birth control, you're further shutting down ovulation, especially the combined pill, the hormonal oral pill.
With the progestin.
Yeah, exactly. It basically shuts down the communication between your brain and your ovaries. So it tricks your body into thinking that you're pregnant, essentially. And if someone with PCOS comes in is like, I want to regulate my period, putting them on birth control is doing the opposite to help them get their period back. But this is just not the conversation that girls are having when they go into their gynecology office and they just walk out and they're like, okay, I guess this is better. And they're not understanding that that regulated cycle is really just a withdrawal bleed. Like, you're taking a placebo pill for a week. And they're not telling them that either. They're not telling them that they're gonna not absorb nutrients as well. They're not recommending supplements for them to take in order to help them regulate their cycle. And they're definitely not using a functional approach to change their diet and their lifestyle with the pill. So let's say someone goes on the pill. Okay, fine. But I would love to see you also change your diet and your lifestyle and your habits to help you transition off of the pill easier. It's always a Band-Aid to cover a problem. It never addresses the root symptoms. So a lot of things that women go through is they're on birth control for however many years. They went on it because they had really heavy periods, infrequent periods. It just came and it went. It wasn't super stable. They go on birth control, they come off, and they want to get pregnant immediately. And unfortunately, what happens is they struggle to get pregnant because their doctors fail to tell them that they never addressed the root cause of their problems in the first place. So it's kind of like you delayed dealing with the problem. You delayed it by 10 years. And now you're up against a whole other slew of biological factors of getting pregnant. It's hard to get pregnant. Like, it's really hard.
It is a miracle.
It literally is a miracle. Like, I grew up thinking that you can get pregnant any day of the month. And I was like, it's actually so difficult to get pregnant already. And now these doctors are not doing women a service of helping them understand the risks of just covering up a problem for so long. And I know that you shared a little bit about your journey with fertility, and I just commend you so much for everything that you went through. Like, these struggles are really real, and women deal with a lot of grief and pain. And I hate that doctors don't nurture that side and don't help women to their fullest extent.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly. It's Band-Aid medicine, and we talk a lot about that. And to no fault of the doctors, health coaches like myself and people who are in the space work hand in hand with doctors. I went to a doctor yesterday because I had a fever. Doctors are important, but they are treating symptoms. They're, most of them, unless you're going to a functional or integrative, not treating root cause. So they've got 17 minutes with you total when you come in. My periods are heavy. I'm uncomfortable. It's bad. Okay, here's your Band-Aid. And then women stay on it forever. And there are consequences to long-term use of birth control. And unfortunately, you have to follow the money a lot too. Birth control is a huge industry.
Yeah.
There is so much money behind birth control. So nobody's going to come out and vilify birth control. And just like Kim said, it is very necessary in situations, and it saves women's lives, especially in certain countries. What we're saying is make sure that you're going back to the root cause, because there are more and more hormonal issues going on, problems with your reproductive system that you can start taking a look at as early as your first period, so that you don't run into a problem of infertility like I had, or you get to a point where it's just unmanageable. And anybody who has a problem with their period, who has cramps, who has bloating, there's something cellular off. So let's figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And informed consent is so important. Like, I would recommend some certain people get on birth control for whatever situation that is. The thing is, you have to have informed consent. And like you said, it's not the doctor's fault. This is just how the system is run and operated. And this is just how they're trained in conventional medicine. They're trained to just look at symptoms and kind of give a solution to our pain. And that's another point I want to bring up is, like, we run away from uncomfortability and difficult situations so fast. Like, we do not have the stamina to sit in pain and like slow suffering. We do not prefer slow suffering. And I mean, really, who would? But in a world that we live in now, when you can take a pill, you could smoke something, you could snort something, everyone's pain can go away in the matter of
scroll
seconds.
through something. Right.
Exactly. You can dissociate from reality in any way, shape, and form now. And that's what women, and that's what this culture is encouraging people to do, is like, oh no, fix the problem. If something's wrong, fix it, fix it, fix it. It's like this fear-driven culture of not being able to handle pain. But God works in the wilderness. God works in our pain. His power is made perfect in our weakness. And when we take a step back and ask the Lord to help us and to guide us and to literally surrender our plans to Him, that's where true healing comes from.
We'll be right back. Don't go away. It's just getting good. I do not really have much makeup on, a little bit of lip gloss, and my absolute favorite, Dr. Ness Skin Science. This is her Tinted Defense Day Cream SPF 40. You can see by my bottle that I use it every single day, and this is the supersized bottle, which is what you absolutely need. It gives me the protection that I need because it has SPF. It gives me the blur because it has those pigments. But most importantly, like all of Dr. Deness's skincare products, they actually work. She uses the most of the efficacious ingredients, and they're all clean. You know, I wouldn't talk to you about anything in your skincare or your beauty that wasn't clean beauty. This brand really has changed my skin. Listen, I'm 47 years old. I need a little extra help. I'll tell you where to start. Other than the skin defense, you're going to need HydroShield. Oh my goodness, the hydration. It has changed my deeply dehydrated life and makes it look like perhaps I got all the sleep and I have no stress and I didn't cry in the bathroom after my kids went to sleep at night. It really, really works. Everything does. And with clean beauty. And because we want you to have your own midlife glow up and be able to be, I don't know, maybe makeup free from time to time like I am right now. Dr. Denise has given you a little something off. Go to drdenise.com and use the code STRESSED. That's STREST for a discount. You'll thank me later. Now back to the show.
You and I talked a little bit about our health coach training program, and that's something that they talk about a lot as well, is really like this idea of primary food and secondary food. Like we think of our primary food as like the food we eat, the water we drink, but there's so much healing and so much that could be brought to the surface by looking at your social life, by looking at how you sleep, by looking at if you're involved in community or not, if you have good people around you, do you feel lonely? What's your screen time like? These things are sometimes more telling markers of someone's health than what could show up on a blood test. And it's not like healing is not linear. It's an up and down journey. But there have been so many studies shown that when people find healthy relationships or when they get into community or when they find a good church small group, a lot of their problems seem to go away. Because at the end of the day, God created us to not be alone. God created us for community and for people, and he desires to use you and me and the people around us to help heal each other. And if we can't do that, if we're in isolation or if we're constantly just dissociating and numbing our pain with anything we can get our hands on.
Yeah, I always say it's soul work before body work.
Yes.
You might come to me because you want to lose 10 pounds. But when I go through my list of scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling in community, in spirituality, in how you eat and how you move and how you sleep? Oftentimes we'll have to work on your relationship with the Lord and your relationship with others and your relationship to yourself before we can start to fix what it is that you're putting in your mouth and eating.
Yeah, exactly. Like we dissociate different parts of us. Like we'll put physical health in one box, we'll put mental and emotional health in another box, then we'll put spiritual health in another box. But it's like we are one being. Like we are, the parts of our body function together. The eye can't look at the foot and say, I don't need you. All these things work together to make us who we are. And if we're temples of the Holy Spirit, then we have to look at every area of our lives before just pinpointing one thing, because it's often not just that one thing. As you know, as a health coach, there's always things underneath the surface that are a little misaligned.
So what do we do? How you, that girl in the car wrestling with your faith while you were wrestling with your hormones, thinking of it from your perspective, but also a 50-year-old woman's perspective who's doing the exact same thing, feeling crazy half of the month because of hormones and wondering, where is God in this? Why do I feel this way? What do we do?
The first thing is to invite Jesus into it. That's always number one. It's always to just say, God, I don't know what to do in the situation. You have to lead me and guide me through this. And the second thing is to just start doing some research. We have AI at our fingertips. You could ask it any question in the world. It'll give you a bunch of resources. There's endless people on social media talking about things. Like if you're someone who's struggling with endometriosis or you're in perimenopause or you're thinking about hormone therapy, just start Googling some stuff and just start thinking about some things or some questions that you have that you could ask the internet or ask someone else. Knowledge is power, and we have the control and we have the power to change the course of our health. So that's something that I started doing. I started researching PMDD. I started researching ways to manage it. I started thinking about cycle syncing. And let me just tell you guys, I didn't know that there were 4 phases of your menstrual cycle until I was 23 years old. So that was only a few years ago now. And understanding and knowing that information changed my life. And I just happened to scroll on TikTok and a video came up of a girl being like, I'm in my luteal phase. And I'm like, what the heck is a luteal phase? And I sat there and I was like, oh my gosh. And it lit this fire under my butt to like know more. And I just became more hungry for this wisdom. And that's kind of how things unfolded. It's a journey. It can feel super overwhelming. The idea of cycle syncing and having to change your life and do all these things brings up a lot of overwhelm and anxiety for people. But this is a lifelong journey that we're on. And what I always say is do your sustainable best. What works for someone else might not work for you right off the bat. So maybe the first step for someone is wearing blue light glasses at night, thinking about their circadian rhythm. If you're struggling with your sleep, getting out in the sunshine first thing in the morning, using blue light blocking glasses at night. And so if anyone's listening to this and they don't know what I'm talking about, basically the circadian rhythm is your body's natural pattern, and it kind of follows the phases of the sun and the moon. So when we wake up in the morning, we should have energy, we should feel energized, we should feel like we can get through our tasks. And then throughout the day, we start winding down a little bit. Around 9 p.m., melatonin starts to secrete, and it's like, okay, it's time to sleep. But if we're constantly looking at screens, scrolling on our phone before bed, watching TV, surfing on the internet on your laptop, that blue light, our brain registers as daytime light. So our brains get very confused as to what time it is. So it becomes harder to fall asleep, harder to stay asleep, and harder to get restful sleep because your body is like, wait, it's daytime. Why are we going to bed? So wearing blue light blocking glasses could be a really good first step for someone to maybe take their health into their own hands. And then you can move on to things like shopping organic versus shopping GMO foods and foods that are not sourced the right way. And then maybe the next step is you start switching your clothing. It's slow baby steps. Do not do it all at once because I guarantee you'll quit. I guarantee you won't stick with it.
Movements.
Exactly.
On this podcast, every guest will give you so much tangible information and things that you can do. But at the end of the hour, I want you to take away one, and I'm going to start with just one. You hear me talk all the time about sun before screens, getting outside and jump-starting your melatonin production because that starts 12 hours before you actually need it, and aligning your circadian rhythm. So seeing the sun before you look at your screen. The phone isn't the first thing that you look at. I love blue light blocking glasses. As soon as the sun goes down, my favorites are Viva Rays. I will link them in the show notes, and I might even have a coupon code I could find for you, but highly recommend using blue light blocking glasses, just like Kim is saying. It's funny because you were saying earlier that I didn't know there was all these hormones. Yes, estrogen and progesterone, melatonin's a hormone, thyroid, cortisol, all of these things that are regulated by external factors as well as internal factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something that most people don't know either is like you might be deficient in a nutrient or a supplement, and that could be why you're feeling sluggish or you're feeling brain fog throughout the day. Getting a hormone panel or just getting a full blood test done will tell you also so much about your health. The Dutch test is super helpful now. I've yet to take one because my body's still figuring out its natural cycle from coming off of birth control, but I'm going to jump on that as soon as possible. This will be able to tell you if you really are deficient in something. It really might not be all in your head. You might have a vitamin D deficiency. You might have a magnesium deficiency, which most people do anyway, that could help you sleep better at night. And so knowledge is power. Don't be afraid to look underneath the surface. It can inspire a lot of fear and anxiety in people because it's like, oh, what I don't know won't hurt me, or I don't know, if I don't know about it, I won't have to stress about something.
That's a very true thing. I think in all healthcare is sometimes we're not doing the tests, we're not going to the doctors because we're afraid to know, right? And this one goes even deeper, and you really have to check yourself. And this is where you have that conversation with the Lord as well. It's not even that you're afraid to know, it's that you're afraid to do the work, to fix it or change it.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia, and I consistently get pushback on, it's unavoidable, Kerstin. If you have the gene, you're just going to get it, which we know is not true. We know that you can have a genetic predisposition to something, but your lifestyle will pull the trigger of that gun.
Mm-hmm.
But many people don't want to have to do the work to get better. They don't want to change out of the standard American diet. They don't want to have to exercise. So they don't want to have to fast in order to protect themselves. So they just won't do the testing, or they won't go down that road. You mentioned Dutch. That's a great one. Rupa Health does a great one as well. Some people have a hard time with Dutch because it is a lot of peeing at certain times and things like that. Rupa Health is as well, but it's just something else for you to look in. Ask your integrative or your functional doctor. Most GPs, PCPs aren't going to do them. Sometimes if you can find a really, really good nurse practitioner at your gynecologist, they'll help you with that. And you can always come to health coaches because they will help you with those as well. But those knowledge is power.
It really is. Yeah. And I think about this with people in my family too, who are just very unhealthy. And I'm like, I don't know how you don't have diabetes at this point. Like, it's a miracle that you're not diabetic right now.
Yeah.
And they just won't get it checked out. And I'm like, wouldn't you rather know? God forbid there's something worse, like there's cancer growing. Wouldn't you rather know at stage 0 or stage 1 versus stage
But
4
don't
or
you
5?
think it's the truth? They don't want to know because they don't want to change.
Exactly. It's because we've gotten so comfortable with our lifestyle that we don't want to put in the work to change. We don't want to do that slow suffering. No one wants to go on that journey, but the people
Yeah.
who do are the ones who live longer, whose end of their life is more pleasant than the way that people are aging now. And then they can run around with their grandkids and they can keep up and they're not winded.
That's the
Or,
key.
yeah, I mean, wouldn't you want that for yourself? And it is a deeper question that you have to ask yourself of what negative self-belief do I have underneath this? Do I feel like I'm not worthy of being healthy? Do I feel like I can't handle the stress of life, so I turn to food for comfort? These are really hard questions that you have to ask yourself. And once you get to the root of these negative self-beliefs, then you can start taking the step towards healing.
What are we missing? What else can somebody do, especially on the side of the mental health that comes with our hormones, the anxiety, the sleeplessness, the worry, the rage? What do we do?
Girl, I wish I had the magic answer for all of it. I
Come
really
on,
do.
Kim.
I think what helps me is understanding where I'm at in my cycle. So because I'm still having a period, knowing what phase I'm in helps me surrender to what my body's telling me. So I am the type of person that will push past my limit, and then I'll guilt myself for feeling like I can't keep up. So if I'm in my luteal phase or if I'm in my menstrual phase, I can allow myself to stop and pause because it's what my body's telling me and asking me to do. And it's what God's inviting me to do, is to rest in that phase. Or when I'm in my follicular or when I'm ovulating, I know that I feel more confident. I feel more happy and energetic and social. I will ride off of that wave and I'll make my social calendar super packed. I'll go and do things with people. I'll go out in nature more. I'll kind of just honor where I'm at in my cycle and not gaslight myself into trying to put a round peg in a square hole, if that makes sense. I'm not forcing myself to go against my body's design and God's design for my body. I'm honoring the rhythms and the rest and the seasons that Ecclesiastes 3 talks about. I'm honoring God by honoring his design for my menstrual cycle. And that may look a little different for someone else. Maybe if you're going through menopause and it's like, I don't even know where I am, I'm all over the place. Just melt into it. Just honor it. Sometimes a good laugh can go a long way. Like, I will be so dramatic. My husband will walk into the room and put a dirty dish in the sink, and I'll literally start crying. And then I'm like, this is crazy right now. Like, this is fine. Like, he didn't stab me with a knife. Like, he just put a dirty fork in the sink and it's okay. And sometimes just laughing about it or having girls to talk to relate with, it kind of takes the burden out of our minds of us feeling insane and makes it feel less significant. So things like journaling are also super important. Honestly, just sitting in silence, going for like a walk with the Lord, praying out loud, listening to worship music. If you're creative, maybe it's writing a song or doing some sort of art or poetry or coloring or painting. Whatever things that you feel drawn to, do more of that, because that's often how God wants to speak to you. So don't try to think or force yourself or put pressure on yourself to journal when you're not a writer. Okay, so don't journal. That's not
Yeah.
one of your
Speak it out.
things.
Do a voice
Speak
note.
it.
Right.
Exactly. Sing it, speak it, put it into words, paint a picture. I don't know what it is for you, but don't think that God can only speak to you and lift a burden off of your chest by it looking one way. It could look a million different ways for different people. So that would be my advice, I think.
I'll put some points on some of the things you say. I like the Ultra Human ring tracker. It will track your cycle for you as well. So it is menstrual. So you bleed and then you go into follicular and then you go into ovulatory. And then there's that luteal phase that she was talking about. And then it comes back around. When you get post 35, when you could possibly start to see those first signs of perimenopause, it can last forever, friends, and things start to go a little up and down, and then you get into your 40s and maybe you skip a period here and there, maybe it gets really heavy, who knows. It's even more important to be tracking, to try and kind of figure out where you are and giving yourself grace. I 2 nights ago cried myself to sleep. My teenage daughter said something mean to me, and listen, teenagers, and I need to be a little bit, I'm a very sensitive person as it is, but it would just hurt me so bad. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. And the next day I'm like, I'm totally going to get my period. And understanding that you're more sensitive to things, understanding that, listen, I can't lift my 30s on this day because my body isn't as strong. Understanding that I'm going to be hungrier and I'm probably going to need some sweet potatoes and I'm going to need to up my carbs a little bit during this phase, as opposed to this phase, I can push my fast and I'll feel better there. That is going to help you manage the hormones and feel better about yourself. This goes back to that knowledge is power. So really understanding where you are and having that data for yourself is really important.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question actually. How
Sure.
has becoming a mom change the way and the relationship that you have with yourself? Like, how is parenting and mothering change the way that you see your body and how God sees you?
Oh, it was very hard for me because I went through infertility. So I was very angry at my body. I got angry with the Lord. I mean, through miscarriage and then having wondering why can't my body do what every other woman's body does? Right? Asking those questions of myself, getting to the other side of it and seeing how beautiful and how the Lord created me just for specifically this one baby that I carried and these two babies that came to me from the womb of another. So going back to marrying faith and hormones, I don't know how people get through that type of thing with their bodies, any type of illness or any type of diagnosis without the Lord. I don't know how it's possible to do any of this without faith. And thankfully, you and I don't have to do it without the Lord. But if you are struggling with anything, the way that you feel about yourself, infertility, PMDD, anything, going to the Lord first because you aren't strong enough, He is the first answer. But I will say, to answer your question, I know now as a 47-year-old woman that my capacity for stress, I cannot metabolize stress the way that I did when I was 26. We just can't. When you think about it back into biblical times, this was the time when we start to care for the elders. Our children are out of the house. We are gardening and cooking and caring. We are not running around, killing the animals, chasing the babies. We're supposed to have less stress. However, I just changed my career this year. I have a lot to offer. We are wise. We are having babies later in life. And I'm not going to say don't do that, but I say honor your body in that. So I understand now at 47 as opposed to 27 that I can still do a lot of the same things, but I have to build in the stress breaks. I have to do the meditation. I have to eat even better and cleaner. Alcohol has no space in my life. I have to do the cold plunges and the saunas, and I have to have these things, and I have to exercise. Whereas maybe when I was 26, I could just power through and do everything and then, stay out till 2 a.m. and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So being very in tune with your body and the space that you're at and where you are on the spectrum of having children, because they will throw in that not only physical, but emotional and mental piece of it as well.
That's so encouraging to me to hear you talk about that. You've walked longer in these shoes than I have. And I can't wait to be a mom one day. I really hope that that's the Lord's will for my life. And I don't want to say that I know I'm going to struggle, but I know the way that I react to certain things, especially because of my medical trauma and going through that bleeding disorder at a really young age. I actually was a Make-A-Wish kid. which I don't know if you knew or not. Yeah. So I wasn't dying, thankfully. I mean, I thought I was, but I really wasn't. But it was really traumatic. And there's things that I get afraid of like, am I going to be capable of loving a child and ministering to a child when no one did that for me? Like, that's still a gap and a void that I'm working through. And what I am saying to myself too is like, there's a grieving process that will never stop as women, I don't think. There's always going to be something, some part of your life that is always going to be a sore point. But it's okay to grieve and grow at the same time. It's okay to grieve and have these new experiences. And it doesn't do us any good by comparing our lives to another woman's lives, because guess what? Like, they didn't have the experience with their mother like you had. Maybe someone didn't go through a really traumatic medical history as a teenager like me. So how could I compare my body to theirs? How could I? You know, it's unfair to us, and it only puts us in a negative headspace when we look at someone else with maybe no history of anything, no family history of bleeding disorders or whatever it is, or Alzheimer's and dementia, and be like, I just wish my body functioned like theirs. It's like, okay, well, they have a whole different set of DNA and a whole different set of gene expressions than we do. So just honor the one that you have and learn to love it and learn to support it, because no one's perfect. No one's blood test is going to come back 100% in range. It's just, it would be a miracle. I've yet to see one.
Yeah, that's so true.
So I
And
think it's like, yeah.
You know how you do it, that question that you ask yourself, how can I love and minister a child when I didn't have that myself? You can, because the Lord is our ultimate father. And so many people listening did not have or do not have the love of their earthly parents, or just haven't felt that, or were raised in a lot of church hurt and religion that, like you, that taught you shame. So once you turn back to God and you focus solely on that relationship between you and the Father, understanding that word right there, that's your father. That is your example for parenting, to love unconditionally. There is nothing that you can do. There is nothing that you could have done in your past that you'll do in your future that will separate you from the love of the Lord. He will always love you and be there supporting you. And so you can take that and then you turn that to your child. I have absolutely no doubt that you're going to be a phenomenal mother when the time comes, and it will come.
I know it will. Also, my mom and I are just fundamentally two different people, and I love her so much. We have a great relationship now, but it's like, I can't have those fears because I'm not hardwired the way that she was. I didn't experience the same things as she did. And I know that I'm going to be very nurturing and loving and caring with my kid, almost to a fault of overprotection. But, you know, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. I just think we've got to give ourselves grace to figure things out. We're doing life for the first time. And someone listening to this could look at us and be like, oh, they've got it down. And it seems like, they've figured it out for the most part. No, we have a small piece of it under control, but things are always changing. Our bodies are constantly evolving and growing. We're constantly in new environments and situations. Like, you just switched your job. I just got married. Like, I'm going to become a different person. I'm going to evolve and grow. And I just think that that's what's so cool about doing life with Jesus, is that he's with us for every version of ourselves that we become, and he loves every single one of our versions and died for them. And he knows our bodies because he made them. So he will know how to heal them too.
Did you went off of the IUD, then how have you managed your condition without birth control?
So when my bleeding disorder basically lasted about 2 years, and I stayed on birth control because I was like, oh, I'm not getting a period. That's kind of great. I don't want to bleed on family vacations and whatever. So my condition is basically an autoimmune disease called ITP. And when I had it, it was a very intense, aggressive version of it, where my body started attacking my platelets, which are what stop you from bleeding, versus other harmful viruses. My body just did a 180. And so that looked like a lot of bruising for me. I would wake up with like bruises and red dots called petechiae all over my body. I was falling asleep all the time. I had no energy. I was on steroids. I was doing bone marrow biopsies. They thought I might have leukemia, lupus, all this stuff. But what ended up healing me was this immunotherapy called rituximab, which basically deletes a layer of your immune system. It completely gets rid of your B cells. And at the time, they didn't know if these B cells grew back at all or if they grew back healthy. So I've been in remission now for the past 8 years, I would say. Thank God. But that condition kind of went away with that treatment. I stayed on birth control because I just wanted to. And I was like, you know what? I didn't know the Lord yet. I was fooling around with guys. I was like, let's just use this as a protection. And I just never went off of it because I just didn't feel the need to until the Lord started speaking to me about all these things. But to make a long story short, that helped manage the bleeding and all of that, but it wasn't what healed me, if that makes
I
sense.
get it. Yeah, I see. What
Yeah,
are
it
your
was
non-negotiable health practice, whether they are primary food, secondary food? What are things that you do for your health?
my morning routine is the most important part of my day. I will not budge on
Amen.
my morning routine. So that looks like waking up, I make the bed, depending on if my husband is still sleeping or not. Most of the time he's not. I brush my teeth, I wash my face, and then I go downstairs and I make my greens powder with my pre and probiotic supplements. So I get them all in powder forms. And then I add a little bit of like a B vitamin complex in there to make it taste a little bit better. I'll drink that slowly while I read the word. So I will open my Bible. I try to do this before looking at my phone. I'm not perfect at it every day, but I will read the Bible. I will talk to the Lord. I'll just give him thanks for the day. And then I'll go and make a breakfast that has a minimum of 30 grams of protein, a healthy fat, and some sort of fruit or vegetable. And that sets my day up for success more than anything I could ever ask for. Some days when it's nice, I'll take my drink and my Bible and I'll go outside and I'll sit in the sun on the deck or whatever. It doesn't happen every day. Obviously, we live on the East Coast. It's not
Yeah.
sunshine and rainbows every day. Bonus points if I can do that outside and get sun on my face. But setting myself up spiritually and physically for success first thing in the morning helps me so much throughout the day. It helps me manage my stress so much better. It helps me just shake little things off a lot faster. And I feel satisfied and full. I feel satiated. I feel energized. And I feel like my breakfast, depending on what I eat, can go one of two ways. If I skip out on a healthy breakfast, I'll feel those blood sugar swings. I'll feel the mood swings and the energy crashes. But if I have my plate with healthy proteins, healthy fats, maybe a carb, depending on how I'm feeling that day, and a fruit or a vegetable, I know that I'm giving myself the best shot at having a good day.
So good. So good. And what about stress relief? What do you think somebody can do who's listening to this right now? Most likely a woman who is struggling with their hormones. How can she help relieve some of that stress? What's one thing you have for everybody?
I think there's so much power in vocalizing how you feel. Depending on your living situation, depending on if you're single, if you're married, if you're widowed, if whatever your situation is, find someone in your life that you trust that you can talk to. For me, that's my husband and my girlfriends or my community at church. And I will be as honest as I possibly can. I'll be like, here's exactly how I'm feeling. And sometimes just offloading the things that are swirling in your head makes you feel so much better. And that helps me manage a lot of my stress because most of my stress comes from worry about the future, things that haven't even happened or things that I think could possibly happen that worry me before it's even a reality. Just saying that sometimes and having someone else say, I don't really think that that's going to happen. Or like, I understand that fear, but that's not reality right now. Let's leave that behind. I kind of need to like have that cognitive talk therapy with people to help manage my stress. So that's one thing I would say. And then the other thing I would say too is move your body throughout the day. Movement is so helpful for getting stagnant energy out of your body. I don't know if you've heard about like shaking, but literally just like thrashing your hands and just shaking things off feels so good. If you look at dogs, when they're in really stressful situations, they'll yawn or they'll shake and then they're fine because they just literally release that stress and that energy. So we could take a page out of the Canine's book and maybe go for a walk or a run or get a punching bag, just kind of like release that physical energy because it has nowhere to go and we want to give it a healthy outlet. Those are my top two. I would love to know what yours are though, because I'm always down to adopt new habits.
Those are fantastic. This is the question that I ask every single guest at the end is one thing they can do to kind of reduce their stress right now. And sharing your story, speaking it out loud is one of my one of my absolute favorites. Getting a good night's sleep. Sleep does heal. That's where your brain and where your body heals.
Yep.
If you are in a true anxiety spiral, like intense, acute, traumatic situation where your mind is spinning, honestly, putting your face in a bowl of ice water, even putting your hands in ice water can kick you out of that. Pushing against a wall because you're in fight or flight. And when you think about it, you can't run from a bear, which is what your body thinks it's doing, and also stop and push against a wall at the same time. So that can kick you out of it. Like those are those acute moments of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, that's good. I actually haven't heard of pushing against the wall. I'm going to start doing that. My husband's going to be
Yeah.
like, are you okay? I'm like, leave me alone.
Also,
I'm moving this wall.
I'm moving the wall. The bear's going to stop. Also, just breathing through your left nostril. So closing your right nostril and just breathing through your left nostril puts you back into parasympathetic. So
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of
does
great
that
ones.
do something with like the vagus nerve and it like trigger? Wow. Okay.
And if you want to rev yourself up, like you need to go and you're getting ready, you do it the opposite. So you close the left and just breathe through the right for a while.
That is fascinating. God has given us free tools. Free, completely free.
Amazing.
He's so good.
Our bodies. I know. Yeah. And to think that we ignore it, like we've talked about, and when we look the other way because we don't want to know. No, God's given you the tools. He's given you an amazing body to be able to honor. And that includes your hormones. That includes your period. That includes your lack of period when the time comes, and pregnancy, and everything from beginning to end. Super important. Kim, I'm so blessed by you out there sharing, especially with a younger generation, without shame and just kind of going out in faith in all of this. I'm super, super proud of you. And it's so good to know you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here.
Coming up on the next episode of StRest, it is the lost episode. It's amazing how God works sometimes. I had recorded an entire episode about my own infertility and adoption story after we had that great episode with Courtney Kaysen, which you should absolutely go back and listen to. And she shares her infertility story. And it was all supposed to happen during Infertility Awareness Week in April. Lo and behold, we lost the episode. So I had to go back and re-record it. It actually ended up turning into 2 separate episodes. The Lord just worked. And we have some amazing things to share with you. So in the first installment of the infertility episodes, you're going to hear all about my story, what I went through, so that you can learn from that. But also, I want to give you some tangible advice on what to say and what not to say to the people in your life who might be going through infertility, and things that you should be asking and saying to yourself if it's you who is in the midst of miscarriage and infertility. That's all coming up on the redone lost episode of StRest. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kerstin.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.Kerstin-Lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.